food and happiness. Topic for tonight that we'll be discussing. Everyone tends to need to eat, unless there's some people that are living on air in the audience. And everyone tends to want to be happy, unless there's some people that are masochists in the audience. So, it seems like a good topic that's relevant for everyone. And the idea of food and happiness is that not only should we strive for deriving happiness from our food, but also doing that in a way that is long-term sustainable. You might find you get a burst of happiness from eating something, and then that causes a whole bunch of misery. That's not what we're after here at the Loft. We want long-term sustainable happiness that's good for people and good for the planet. And my goal today, of course, is twofold. One is to educate everyone into the yoga wisdom of ancient India that talks a lot about food and happiness, and to inspire people to perhaps conduct a bit of a lifestyle change or conduct an experiment into how they could better their relationship with food. So, like I said, everyone tends to like to eat, right? Yes, who likes to eat? All right, yeah, cool. All right. And however, who has been in a position like this before? I wasn't expecting you all to admit it. But okay. Yeah, this is a stereotype. You tend to get really emotional and it's like, I'm just going to eat this. You don't really feel, you can't really even think what you're doing. You can't taste the food. You're just mindlessly devouring it because you just feel, and you feel so guilty afterwards. Like, oh, why did I do that? I couldn't stop myself. And similarly, stereotypically, it's women that tend to be in this kind of situation, but men also. But stereotypically again, men tend to be in this situation. Where it's like, I'm just going to sink my teeth into this amazing octuple bypass burger. You can get this place, a burger like that in Las Vegas. There's a restaurant called Heart Attack Grill. where the food is so high in cholesterol and calories and stuff that it's likely to cause you a heart attack. Several guests have actually had heart attacks while eating it at the place. People thought it was a show, but they actually had real heart attacks. So that particular burger has 20,000 calories. This has enough to feed a normal person for 10 days. And people eat it. When you go into the restaurant, you get a hospital gown, and the waitresses are dressed as nurses, as you can see, going with the theme. So, stereotypically, of course, no one here, but stereotypically, men are like, yeah, that's great. Go have the super tasty burger. Who cares if I get a heart attack? It tastes so good. So you have these stereotypes of unhealthy relationships with food. And you go to various sources of information and go, okay, I want some advice. What kind of diet should I lead, and how should I approach my relationship to food? And you get this as an answer. You're like, which one? Tried it all. They're all supposed to be amazing. They're all supposed to solve all my problems. With one of them, bacon is the worst possible thing you can have, and another, bacon is a superfood that you should have every day. So, who's right? I don't know what to do. Too much information, diet overload. And piled on top of all of this, so many people have eating disorders. Extremely common. I read a statistic like 10% of people will have an eating disorder sometime in their life. So tonight's talk is not about eating disorders necessarily, and I'm not really qualified to address that. This is for normal people. But I'm told that if anyone here has an eating disorder, most commonly anorexia and bulimia, but there's also others, professional medical help is actually quite good at solving those, and it has a 60% cure rate for anyone that seeks professional help. So I'd encourage anyone who's suffering from those kind of conditions to go seek professional help, and very likely that that will help the situation. Because it's really more of a mental illness than a thing that you can solve with advice. So it needs proper psychological help. Not yoga wisdom can help, but it's not enough to solve the problem. All right. So with that said, if you open the Bhagavad Gita, which is the prime yoga wisdom text, it explains that there is no possibility of becoming a yogi or a Arjuna if one eats too much, or eats too little, sleeps too much, or does not sleep enough. So if you want to become a yogi, regulate the right amount of eating, not too much, not too little, is what you need to do. And you can be peaceful if you conduct yourself in that way. And yet, we see that, I see in my work every day, I work with seemingly intelligent people. I associate with people that are top of their fields in computer science, at least. So I see people all around me who seem to not be able to control, for some reason or other, not be able to control their eating. Either eat too much, eat too little, or eat junk, or eat so many things. And we see in society people that are so-called leaders of society who are more or less intelligent. That's Obama on the left, and Trump. I said more or less intelligent, right? They also seem to be struggling with this. So it's everyone who has the wisdom and the self-control to properly regulate their eating. Seemingly smart people and not so smart people all are struggling with the same issue. So it must be something that you cannot solve just by intelligence, just by your mind. It's not possible. And indeed, if you read the Yoga Wisdom, it explains. Arjuna said, the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Anyone can control the wind? Nope. The mind is even more difficult to control. So no wonder that Obama bites into a burger. So, even more reason why this food issue is so much of a problem, of course, as everyone is probably aware, it's a major cause of climate change.
Even the mainstream media has begun to notice that huge reductions in meat eating are essential to avoid dangerous climate change. According to the most comprehensive analysis yet of the food system's impact on the environment, in Western countries, beef consumption needs to fall by 90% and be replaced by 5 times more beans and pulses. And I think I speak for all of us when I say, what in God's name is a pulse?
Yes, that's the most important issue. What is a pulse? A pulse is another type of way of describing a bean, like a chickpea or something. It's another word for it. All right, so with that important issue resolved, all these problems with our food, what do we do about it? And we need to turn to spiritual advice for how we properly engage with our food. And before I can talk about food, I need to, first of all, because there's a few new people here who might not have heard this particular, we discuss these topics a lot, these particular aspect of spiritual knowledge, I need to introduce a few spiritual concepts before anything else I'd say makes sense. So, first of all, in the Krishna-conscious spiritual path, we understand that ourself is our consciousness, which is our perception of reality. The thing that is you, the thing that is me, the thing that I perceive as myself, the thing that experiences the world. That is consciousness. That is surrounded by a layer of mind. The mind accepts and rejects suggestions. The mind springs into action. It's the snap judgment thing that you put a plate of nice food in front of the mind goes, I want. You put something disgusting in front of the mind goes, ugh, I don't want. That is surrounded by the layer of the body, which is the physical, material manifestation of the mind. And that body executes things in the world, is our vehicle to move around the world and accomplish everything we want. The self, the consciousness, is not the mind and is not the body. When the body dies, the self and mind get a new body by reincarnation. So, if someone's mind is really believes one thing, or is really attached to one thing, that is not you. You can change your mind. Many people change their mind all the time throughout their life. And yet people seem to be really attached to thinking, I'm like this. I am a vegetarian, some people might say. No, you're not. Your mind, at this moment, is conditioned to think it's a vegetarian. You are not your mind. Similarly, if someone might think, I have this eating disorder, for example. No, that is a wrong, misleading statement because it creates this feeling of helplessness. I have this, I am this, I can't change. Of course you can change. You're not your mind. Your self, your consciousness, can influence your mind and can consciously choose, no, I will take steps to transform my own mind, just like someone might take steps to transform their own body. And go to the gym, work out, your body gets stronger, muscles get bigger. Similarly, you can take steps to transform the mind. Mind might believe one thing, you might read a lot and learn, oh, actually, what I believed wasn't true. And then gradually the mind believes something different. So this creates a huge amount of hope and agency, because suddenly both your mind and your body are under your control, and you can shape them to be whatever you think is best. You're no longer helplessly controlled by your own mind, or some people are controlled by their own body. All right. Next. Right. And on the previous thing, previous quote from Bhagavad Gita, where the mind is very strong and more difficult to control than the wind, well, Krishna goes on to say, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Detachment meaning, I understand I'm not the mind. That's the first step. And then practice. Just like you might practice weightlifting, you can practice mind control by various meditation techniques. So it's possible to control this wind, this thing that's more difficult than to control the wind. All right, next concept. 3 modes of nature. In the Krishna literature, it explains that our body and mind is overcome and controlled by 3 modes of nature that are like switches that you can turn on and off, and that turn on and off. Sattva, Raja, and Tama. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. These are external influences and internal mental states that shape our reality. Sometimes you might be in one, sometimes there's a mixture of multiple ones mixing together. Happiness, in these various modes, if one of these modes is switched on, your happiness is of a particular type. So, depending on which mode is predominant at one particular time, one's happiness changes. In the mode of ignorance, your happiness starts off as unhappiness, distress, mild distress, and then gets really bad. In the mode of passion, happiness starts off as amazing, the happiest, most exhilarating you've ever felt, and then disaster. You feel horrible, and then amazing again, and then horrible again, and then amazing again. Keeps going up and down. And happiness in goodness starts off as, oh, this is kind of horrible, but then gradually gets better and better and better, and then levels out to a comfortable level of happiness that is not as high as supreme passionate happiness, but comfortable and steady. Most people today are, sorry to say it, in passion and ignorance, and don't really know any other way. Some people are in goodness, genuinely, and are happy with steady happiness. That's nothing flashy, but nice. But most people want extreme happiness, but they don't realize that with extreme happiness, guaranteed comes extreme distress later. It's the nature of the mode that what they're in. So, yoga knowledge explains different modes of nature and the fact that we're not the body and mind, and I can and I have given entire talks on both of those topics. But that's not our focus here. We're talking about food. So, Food is also in both of these modes, in all of these three modes. So food in one mode will change. If we consume food in one of these particular modes of nature, it transforms how we interact with the world and our own perception of happiness. In Bhagavad Gita, which I thoroughly recommend everyone read, it's an amazing book, explains, food prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten, food that is tasteless, decomposed, and smells putrid, and food consisting of the remnants and untouchable things is dear to those in the mode of darkness. So, food that is not fresh, food that is tasteless, decomposing, smelling like it's decomposing, and full of untouchable things. Causes is in the mode of darkness, and that starts off causing unhappiness and gets much worse. So you might think, does that apply? Does anyone eat food that is decomposed, tasteless? Would anyone even do that? Like, or untouchable? Anyone touch roadkill on the ground? No. Who would do that? Anyone touch one of these? Same thing. You're like, no. I mean, look at that. That is disgusting. And that look attractive, red, and amazing. But the reason it looks attractive is not because it is. It is because ingredients, food chemistry that the meat producers expertly use. Carbon monoxide. You know carbon monoxide, this gas that can kill you if it comes out of your heating apparatus. That same gas people put in the shrink wrap with meat. It prevents the meat going gray. Normally, in a couple of days, any meat that's killed turns gray and starts decomposing. But with carbon monoxide, gas surrounding it, it can stay that way for 15 days on the shelf. It spoils and is completely, and you're no longer able to eat it without getting sick after about 5 days, but it still looks perfectly fine because the carbon monoxide reacts with the meat and preserves the color. Similarly, they do the same with fish or sodium nitrate they put into bacon. Yes, it causes colon cancer, but it causes colon cancer if someone's on antidepressants at the same time as they eat the bacon. So, of course they don't tell you that. It's proven to be safe. Yes, it is proven to be safe if you're not on Prozac at the same time. And so many people are on antidepressants because they're either in the mode of passion or ignorance. So, and the middle thing that I can pronounce is used to color fish. So fish looks attractive. So I have a short video on food that is decomposing. And as you're watching the video, think, this is really all meat that is decomposing in this way? This is just extreme to kind of shock you.
Siggy, a traditional Icelandic cook, is preparing one of the signature meals of the Thorablock festival, as the Vikings once did. This freshly caught 1,700-pound Greenland shark is naturally full of urea and other toxins. These chemicals act as antifreeze, allowing the shark to live in waters as cold as -2 degrees Celsius. The toxins are so concentrated that to eat this meat could make you seriously ill or possibly even kill you. But Hildebrander Biamas's family has a secret shark recipe that goes back generations, and he knows that the only way to prepare it is to let it rot. As the meat decomposes, it oozes toxic ammonia, the chemical found in most household cleaning products and human waste.
I don't want to say the word, this will probably describe it best. Pee.
After 6 months, it's ready to be served.
Yeah, this is going to be very good. It has 2 more months. It's going to be a great shot, this one.
It's a social thing for us to come together and eat this.
I don't like the show.
It's like ammonia.
It tastes the smell of fish. It does.
Yeah, sorry. But who here has eaten something and immediately gone, oh, I shouldn't have done that? Yes, so. And this is happiness in the mode of ignorance. And people are, yes, this is tradition, this is social, we'll eat this thing that tastes. Anyway, moving on. Food in the mode of fashion. Margarita explains, foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning are dear to those in the mode of passion. Such foods cause distress, misery, and disease. Extreme pleasure to begin with, extreme misery ending in that. Pungent food are things that have a sharp, strong smell, like onions and garlic are pungent. And these are foods like these. Too much salt on hot chips, chili. Anyone bitten into a onion, raw onion before? I've had to do it for medical reasons. Horrible. It's also, by the way, foods like these, which are more common, and practically everyone in today's society eats stuff like this. And it causes happiness. Yes, it's expertly designed by food scientists to cause happiness in people's lives. But long term, it causes misery, disease, and stress. One of New Zealand's most popular breakfast cereals, Nutrigrain. 4 stars health, 4 health stars. Wow, you have to eat it, it's great. Looked into the ingredients. A quarter of the Nutrigrain cereal by weight is sugar. And it's wheat, basically wheat protein and sugar with some vitamins fortified to make it sound healthy. It's not healthy. It will cause like diabetes and high blood pressure and all kinds of things. Similarly, eggs. People are like, well, what's wrong with eggs? Eggs are the highest possible cholesterol food that you can eat. A single egg puts you over the daily limit for cholesterol consumption. So eggs contribute more than anything else to heart attacks in New Zealand. So you're thinking, oh, didn't know that. Wow. So that's food in the mode of passion. You think, yes, this is good for me. I'll take it. And then, oh no, disease. How could this happen? I thought I was being happy. Similarly, here's another video of a food that is, remember this burning? You think, who would eat burning food? That's crazy. What?
Now I'm going to show you how to drink a flaming shot and have it be delicious and not set yourself on fire. Coming from the side, you get your straw in your mouth, and you go like this. Done. Didn't get hurt. Drank a flaming shot. Tasted like candy with a kick. And you drink a couple of those, and you will be hammered.
This guy is about to drink a flaming shot alcohol that's actually on fire, and he'll probably never want to try another. Videos like this going viral. This customer is trying a special cocktail, a flaming shot that you drink through a glass tube.
Flame shot. There's absolutely no safe way to consume a flaming food or beverage. There is massive injury occurring to him at this point. His clothes are it's continually burning and it's continually damaging all that skin underneath. We're causing 2nd and 3rd degree burns here right now.
So yeah, food is burning. Also might cause some happiness if you're the first guy, you're like, yeah, I can do this. But make one mistake and intense distress. And you might think, I'm never going to do that, I'm not that stupid. But who has consumed any of the foods on the previous slides before? I have, right? Yeah, same thing, right? Yeah, I just took it to the extreme. All right, food and goodness. what is the characteristic of food in the mode of goodness? Foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, make you live longer, purify one's existence, give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. And when it says fatty, it doesn't mean like saturated fat, deep friedness. It's healthy fats, avocados and stuff. Foods like these. Juicy, fatty, wholesome, pleasing to the heart. Increase health, happiness, satisfaction. Fruits, vegetables, perfectly organic. And some of these kind of foods, for some people, are a bit stressful to begin with. Like, there's this thing about Brussels sprouts, like, ugh, I don't really like Brussels sprouts, but you start eating them, prepare them properly, go to the cooking class here at the lab, and even though they might be a little bit hard to stomach to begin with, you end up actually liking them a lot. Like Brussels sprouts are one of my favorite foods, and it becomes this nice, steady happiness. It doesn't cause this extreme burst of pleasure, but it's steady, it's nice, it's comfortable. And indeed, scientific studies show that this is not just a feeling that people have. This is actually true. For example,
the largest such study was done in Great Britain, where a dose-response relationship was found between daily servings of fruits and vegetables and both life satisfaction and happiness, meaning more fruits and veggies meant more happiness. People who got up to 7 or 8 servings a day reported the highest life satisfaction and happiness. And these associations remain significant even after controlling for factors such as income and illness and exercise, smoking, and body weight, suggesting fruit and vegetable consumption wasn't just acting as a marker for other healthy behaviors. But how could eating plants improve happiness on their own? Well, many fruits and veggies contain higher levels of vitamin C, which is a cofactor in the production of dopamine, the zest for life neurotransmitter. And the antioxidants reduce inflammation, which may lead to higher levels of eudaimonic well-being. Aristotle's notion of eudaimonia, described as the highest of all human goods, the realization of one's true potential, which was the aim of this study. They wanted to know whether eating fruits and vegetables was associated with other markers of well-being beyond happiness and life satisfaction, like greater eudaimonic well-being, a state of flourishing characterized by feelings of engagement, meaning, and purpose in life. So, a sample of about 400 young adults followed for about 2 weeks, and indeed young adults who ate more fruits and veggies reported higher average eudaimonic well-being, more intense feelings of curiosity, greater creativity. And they could follow this on a day-by-day basis, greater well-being on the days they ate healthier. These findings suggest that fruit and vegetable intake is related to other aspects of human flourishing beyond just feeling happy.
So yes, and indeed, in Krishna consciousness, we learn that in order to properly practice spiritual life, you really need to come up to the mode of goodness. And from there, you can springboard onto spirituality. You don't really have the right consciousness to be able to, say, practice meditation properly without at least coming to goodness. And then from there, being able to have fulfillment in life, meaning in life, and all these things. So, with the foods in the various modes established, we can understand why. Nowadays, veganism is very trendy. People are turning vegan in droves all over the world. In a place like Berlin, 20% of young people are vegan, self-professed vegan. No, today, so veganism is amazing and good, and I'm currently vegan myself, so I'm not saying anything against veganism, but it doesn't get to the underlying happiness issue. It solves the destruction of the planet, it solves the merciless killing of animals, but it doesn't make, there's something lacking. And I think it's best exemplified by the Impossible Burger. Anyone heard of the Impossible Burger? Yes, a few people. Because most of you haven't, I'll play a short video because it's worth knowing about this miracle of modern engineering.
The future of food looks like this. It's a new operation run by a company called Impossible Foods that's churning out something that looks, feels, tastes, and smells like ground beef. Hell, it even bleeds like a medium-rare burger. But this patty is actually all plant, a product of genetic engineering. It's the first step in an effort to take on the multi-billion-dollar meat industry. Heme. That's the taste of iron you get.
When you're cooking a piece of meat, what happens is the protein that's carrying the heme, myoglobin in the muscle, opens up, the heme comes out, and catalyzes a bunch of reactions that create the volatile compounds that really give that smell, that flavor that makes meat so compelling.
Your traditional veggie burger can't get the taste anywhere near right, because they ain't got that heme. But plants contain globin molecules just like animals do. Specifically of interest to Impossible Foods is the root of the soy plant, which contains leg hemoglobin. This helps ferry oxygen around. It also contains that magical heme. But the amount of soy roots these scientists would need in order to produce enough heme would be outlandish.
And the more efficient approach that we came up with was to engineer a yeast and have that produce very high quantities of that heme.
What Impossible Foods has invented is a tiny heme machine. And with meat-free heme, it has the foundation of a stunning imitation of a beef burger. Impossible is trying to isolate and then recreate as many meat-like components as they can. And this machine is helping them do it.
So what I have in front of you is a gas chromatogram mass spectrometer. What this does is allows for us to be able to take this in beef. So we will now have samples at whatever temperature we want to understand what flavors are generated upon cooking. So those aromas again is what creates the flavor of meat. So we will now have kind of a fingerprint of every single aroma that is in beef. And then we can say, how close is the Impossible Burger? Where can we make improvements and iterate to identify how to make each of those particular flavor compounds?
So it all comes down to these ingredients, which include the heme, wheat protein for texture, and coconut as a stand-in for fat. Add them all together, and it starts to look more and more like a beef patty. The result is a meatless burger that's so convincing, it may as well be meat.
Alright, pretty impressive.
We even asked our resident chef to give it a taste.
So it's really simulating that juicy center layer that you would get in a nice mid-rare burger. So you can see on the outside, we've got that nice golden crust, but in the center it's still bloody and rare. Except this time, it's plants doing the bleeding. So let's see how it tastes. Okay. Wow. That is a lot better than I thought it would be. Wow.
So why does a veggie burger need to bleed? Because this isn't targeted to vegetarians and vegans. It's designed to convert meat eaters.
So yes, Impossible Foods has, by modern science, created a vegetable burger that tastes and looks and feels exactly like meat. And why this doesn't solve the problem is because if you make something that tastes and feels and behaves just like meat, it's almost as unhealthy as actual meat for you, without the animal, of course, dying in the process. So that's an improvement, but if you ask nutritionist experts...
Let's talk nutrition and health when it comes to these meatless burgers. First, and it's the thing that surprised me the most, on the burgers that tasted very close to meat, they actually had macros that were quite similar, if not worse, than the actual beef burger. For example, the Impossible Burger has more saturated fat, more calories, more sodium than the traditional beef burger. I can't really go ahead and call these health foods because they're still indulgences. If we fall into the category of thinking these are health foods, people are going to start eating them as part of their regular diets, and that's not healthy. I noticed a pattern. The closer they taste to meat, the more likely they are to be unhealthy in terms of their macros. When I say unhealthy, I mean high amounts of saturated fats, high in calories, high in sodium.
So yeah, the very stuff that makes makes the meat appealing to people whose consciousness is predominant in passion. The immediate extreme pleasure that you would get from eating some juicy meat, people desire that. So these companies, of course, supply and demand, supply it in an ethical way, which is great. But the real problem, why these things like the Impossible Burger don't produce happiness in people and actually produce the same diseases that people get from eating meat, is because, quite frankly, people find the mode of goodness boring. It's like, I'm happy. This is nice. Okay, I'm happy. Ah, how nice. You're like, where's the passion? Where's the energy? Where's the boom, boom? You want to eat something. You want to feel something, right? And for most people, and this is not a value judgment, most people genuinely feel that way, and that's the only way they know how to feel happiness. To get to a steady state mode of goodness, sustainable level of happiness, you need more than just your mind. You can't get there by yourself. It needs an external process, such as, Krishna consciousness, or there's many other ways to get to a state of mode of goodness, of course, but Krishna consciousness is one of them. So you need to transform our consciousness to be able to appreciate the mode of goodness, and from then on, something like the Impossible Burger is like for me, I would eat Impossible Burger if I had to, of course, but I have no desire to do so, because why would I eat something that tastes just like meat? It seems disgusting for me. But other people, it's a good step up from the mode of ignorance, certainly. So, food and sustainable happiness. How do we achieve sustainable happiness through food? Again, we turn to the Krishna literature for an explanation. How do you do this? How do you elevate yourself from modes of passion and ignorance to steady happiness in a way that you can actually desire and be happy? Be comfortable in this steady happiness. Bhagavad Gita explains, the embodied souls may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense object remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, they are fixed in consciousness. There's a famous Krishna cookbook called The Higher Taste, which I pictured there. So you might say, okay, I'm going to elevate myself to the mode of goodness by my own power, and I will eat only broccoli or broccoli and Brussels sprouts for the next week. And you're like, it'll be so hard, because you're like, oh, but that juicy steak, oh, I desire it so much. Must eat the broccoli. You're not solving the desire problem. The taste for objects in passion still exists. People go, I really want that salty food. I really want. And people that are on diets generally experience this, where you're on the diet, but you really want to eat the stuff that is bad for you. But if it were possible to experience a higher taste, something so good that you forget about the stuff that you were desiring before, like you might really want to have the high sugar breakfast cereal, and I really crave that, but then you eat something so good that you forget about the breakfast cereal. Like, who cares about that? If I have this, I don't need the sugary breakfast cereal. Easy. I can give that up, no problem. So that's how you fix yourself in higher consciousness. Not by artificial repression, but by replacing something lower with something higher that provides a higher level of happiness. So, if you do that, suddenly climate change solved, no problem. The meat industry destroying the planet goes away because no one wants to eat the meat. Heart disease solved. No one has the high cholesterol foods anymore, because why would they if they have this thing that's so much better? Diabetes, at least type 2 diabetes, solved. No one eats the high sugar foods anymore because they have something so good. Solved so many of the world's problems just by a change in people's consciousness. So I had an experience of this about 17 years ago, I think, when I just finished university, and I visited a place outside of London called Bhaktivedanta Manor, which is a beautiful country manor house donated to the Krishna organization by George Harrison, a member of the Beatles. So, a beautiful place, had a retreat there, and I still remember to this day. I arrived there late one Friday evening, and they were serving food, and they served this really simple chickpea pasta. It was a simple dish I'd had hundreds of times before, in one variation or another, but it was so good. I couldn't stop eating it. I was like, what is this? And at the end of it, I looked like that. I ate like 3 plates. And someone took a picture of me. I'm like, why? What is it about this food? It's so simple. Why is this so amazing? What is it? Maybe there's some higher taste here? What have they done to this food to make this thing that should not taste as good taste like the most amazing thing I've ever had in my life? Would you like me to tell you what it is? No. Okay, that'll be $5,000. No, I'm kidding. We're not a place like that. I'll tell you for free. It's the consciousness that goes into the food. So, this is a picture I snapped earlier on one side of our volunteers here cooking in the kitchen, and and that's Gordon Ramsay screaming at some cooks in his kitchen on the other. So, the food absorbs the consciousness of the cook. This is consciousness science that you learn about in Krishna consciousness. If your own consciousness can shape your mind and transform your mind, which can produce your body and transform the structure and look of your body, this super powerful consciousness can also transform some simple food. As a cook is cooking the food, the food absorbs the consciousness of the cook, and if you're angry, screaming chef who is angry at everything, the food will absorb that anger, and anyone that eats it receives that anger, and that penetrates their consciousness and affects their own mood and desires. Similarly, if our happy cooking team that is currently preparing the feast in the kitchen is happy and smiling and having a great time, that goes into the food. You eat the food, and you go, wow, this is amazing. What is it with the food at the loft? I don't understand. Why am I so happy after attending the loft? It's the consciousness of the food. And then there's a process of spiritualizing the food by reciting various mantras, which are a formal offering that allows, that removes the bad karma, any bad karma that might be penetrating the food, and that's another spiritual process, again, to elevate the energy of the food. Yeah. So, if you come here more often, ask any of our practitioners. We can teach you how to do that. It's not particularly hard to do. Recite a Sanskrit mantra, follow some simple cleanliness practices while cooking, and don't cook with certain ingredients that are in the lower modes. And anyone can produce food like this of high consciousness. It's not like a mystical mumbo jumbo kind of thing. You follow the process, and you get the result. And everyone that's come here has experienced the result, right? So this spiritual process is really like, I think last week a speaker described it as a hack. It's like a secret trick you can use to transform, to free the mind, create happiness, and really nourish the inner soul, the inner consciousness that we all have in a way that produces long-term sustainable happiness. So you might be convinced or not, and really I don't. Anyone recognize themselves in the picture? It doesn't matter. Yep. Okay. So what we do here at the Loft is not a religious belief type thing. You can believe in Krishna consciousness or not. I don't really care. It doesn't affect your practice of Krishna consciousness. You practice the process of spiritualizing your food. You practice the process of coming to the mode of goodness by mantra meditation. You practice understanding the Krishna science through reading the various books. You eat the food that elevates your consciousness as a mechanism of transforming your mind and body. You do those things. You come to the Loft and experience, and the next day you're like, I'm so happy. This happens to me every time I come. Still, every time. On Monday I'm like, I've come to the Loft and I'm just happy for no reason. It's amazing. Many of you hear that, or if it's your first time, you will see tomorrow. It's like, wow, what was it about that place? There's something special. You feel it, you understand it. You don't need to believe in something to get that. It doesn't matter if you believe it, it works. So that's what makes Krishna consciousness so appealing to me, personally. That's why I'm still doing it after 20 years. It's not some vague believe in this thing and be saved kind of thing. It's you do the practice. It improves your life. And if it has some future life, reincarnation, spiritual benefits too, extra bonus. I'd be doing this even without that. And if it also solves issues like heart disease, diabetes, climate change as a side effect without even addressing those directly, then all the better, right? So that's how you can create long-term spiritual sustainable happiness. By using food, the modes of nature, and understanding of us not being our body and mind to improve ourselves and improve everyone around us. Thank you very much. Any questions? Happy to take any questions from everyone. Anyone? Yes?
Do you think we are slaves of our mind or masters of our mind?
Both. At the same time. Our mind can be our best friend and our worst enemy. For most people, their mind is their worst enemy because it's been conditioned by unhealthy relationships, unhealthy food, unhealthy environments around them, and then the mind just reacts. And if someone doesn't have the knowledge to see the mind reacting, they think, this is me. And then they think, I am this horrible person. No, it's the mind. The person is a slave of the mind and doesn't realize. But if we become the masters of the mind and overcome the mind by following what's called the regulative principles of freedom, the regulations in Krishna consciousness actually free us from the tyranny of the mind, then we can, the mind suddenly becomes our best friend because the mind is going, I want to do the spiritual thing. I want to come to the Loft. I want to spiritualize my food. I want to practice this process because it's so amazing. I really like this. And then that spurs one on and helps one with the practice. So, both.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else? Yes?
So where does dairy sit?
Mm.
On, you've got those three roads you were talking about. You hear so many different things about dairy.
Oh, yeah. Dairy is a controversial thing. Even within Krishna consciousness. One thing that is for sure, the milk that you get from Frontera, generally, is full of hormones and is homogenized and processed in so many ways to make it last longer, to make it look better, that it's probably in the mode of passion. It's not, you're not killing anything to produce the dairy, although they do kill the cows after about 3 to 5 years, but directly to get the cows live for about 30 years, but stop being economical after about 3 to 5 years, so they kill them. Kill the milk cows after 3 years. But the milk itself produces disease because it's been processed so much. High quality milk from cows that are not slaughtered and cared for, and that is doesn't have any of the harmful ingredients and processing, much healthier for a normal person. Someone might still choose not to drink it, but much closer to something in the mode of goodness, a healthy fat, in moderation. Yes?
I guess there's this misconception that you need to have meat for protein.
Oh, yeah.
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 So what's a good replacement? Because I found, I've been craving just from eating too many carbs and things like that. So what's good to replace that previous meat?
Yeah. This myth that the meat industry has perpetuated, that's where you're going to get your protein. This fear that they spread. On that, I'll answer your question in a moment. But on the protein thing, who knows someone that is suffering from obesity? Yes. Who knows someone that's suffering from high blood pressure? Yeah. Who knows someone that is suffering from cachexia?
Is that protein deficiency?
Yes,
That's
yeah. Yes, right. Protein deficiency. Cachexia. The starving kids in Africa with the bloated stomachs. It's called cachexia. Know anyone that has the disease? No, because no one in the modern civilized world is not getting enough protein. The amount of protein we need is far, far less than the official guidelines would have us believe. We do need protein. And to answer your question, beans. Any kinds of beans or peas or nuts, peanuts, extremely high in protein, any kind of chickpea, mung bean, anything. I personally have mung beans practically every day, and that supplies lots and lots of protein. You can really versatile too. You can make hummus out of it. You can get bean and nut spreads, and many different ways you can preserve or transform beans. Bean sprouts also can sprinkle on a salad. So that's excellent source of protein and much, much healthier than having meat.